There's 2 options.
After 6 phases of MCU, Kang is going to have all the conquering he can dream of.
You're lying.
With the long-confirmed appearance of Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and the more recently confirmed appearance of Kang's Dynasty in the next Avengers film, it's time we all get prepared for the coming of the next Thanos-level threat. The MCU is full of powerful heroes, villains, and everything in between, all of which would be a useful ally in battling Kang. On their own though, forget about it. Let's take a look at all the characters Kang the Conqueror could defeat right now. The God of Thunder is the first one on this list who would likely be conquered, and much like Thanos' entry in Avengers Infinity War, taking out Thor first would make a huge statement for Kang the Conqueror. Thor's power only seems to increase with every film he appears in, most recently showing a strong sense of emotional intelligence to defeat an imposing villain.
I knew it.
Kang's mastery over technology and his ability to ruthlessly conquer the most powerful beings in the multiverse may prove to be just too much for Thor. His biggest successes have come when he is part of a team, and even with the Avengers by his side, he may be going up against an entire dynasty of Kangs.
I've allowed you to live long enough.
And I don't care how many magical enchanted weapons you're in a complicated relationship with, there's just no fighting against that. Spider-Man is officially all on his own, without a single soul knowing his life or his real identity. His Stark Tech suits are tucked away in favor of a freshly sewn new getup.
I have it all under control.
And boy was it maybe the wrong time to get back to basics with a villain like Kang the Conqueror on his way. Kang's villainy comes mostly from his brains, but he does have incredible fighting prowess as well. Gifted with technology from the distant future, Kang has been able to arm himself with the greatest weapons and train his body for decades upon decades to be a lethal weapon all itself. All the different versions of Spider-Man that we just met in No Way Home have likely been observed by variants of Kang throughout his time as ruler of the TVA. Just like Thanos, when Spider-Man engages Kang in combat, he will likely think of him as little more than an insect. And trust me, Peter, there's no curing this guy. This may be the toughest matchup for Kang the Conqueror, but given that she's supposedly not around anymore, I guess we will just have to sit and wonder. The Scarlet Witch was one of the most powerful villains seen in any MCU film.
What?
She nearly destroyed the multiverse in search of replacements for her 2 lost sons. Unfortunately, I just don't think failing to destroy the multiverse quite matches up against one's ability to conquer it.
I don't want it.
He Who Remains, a variant of Kang, was able to know Wanda's entire history, and even clip branches of timelines where she went on a different path. Kang is supposedly the most powerful version of this character, and no amount of magic can defeat a villain who just keeps coming back from an infinite number of conquered timelines. Wanda needed a little girl to travel the multiverse, while Kang basically sits and watches from above it all. The Master of the Mystic Arts has shown incredible feats of power throughout his time in the MCU, and even with his new 20/20/20 vision, I don't think he can quite come up against the might of Kang the Conqueror. You see, Kang comes from a place where magic and science have basically become one. He has invented devices that can quickly teleport himself like Doctor Strange's sling ring. His suits and weapons give him superhuman strength beyond the likes that any spell could provide to Stephen Strange.
Typical of the primitive mind.
Overall, Doctor Strange may be becoming powerful enough to travel the multiverse and fight against incursions, but he's also the one causing them in the first place. Come to think of it, in a fight, several of the heroes might look at Stephen and think that Kang is probably better for the multiverse. I'm honestly surprised Kang's variants didn't prune Doctor Strange a long time ago. A giant, unstoppable rage machine may be able to knock down buildings and put out fires just by clapping, but he's no match for a master of time like Kang the Conqueror. Truthfully, Professor Hulk would probably be a better match for him.
Gotta be me.
Kang's greatest weapon is his intellect and knowledge of the multiverse.
It needs to happen.
Hulk is one of the smartest people in the Marvel Universe, but even he couldn't figure out how to make a fully functional, silly little time machine. Instead, he turned Ant-Man into a baby.
Time travel!
It's difficult to imagine, but the intelligence of Kang the Conqueror far surpasses that of Bruce Banner, and he's likely already figured out an infinite number of ways to defeat the Green Half as well. One of Marvel's newest heroes proved to be quite an intimidating force, bloodying up bad guys and even taking on ancient Egyptian gods. Listen though, I don't care how many different personalities you put inside Moon Knight, he's just no match for Kang the Conqueror. Moon Knight uses the power of the Egyptian god Khonshu to exact his vengeance on those who deserve it, and almost always comes out on top, even performing the incredible feat of returning from the dead. Kang would likely laugh at that parlor trick, since his variant, He Who Remains, basically begged Sylvie to kill him, because he knows that no matter how many times he dies, a worse form of him will return to continue his conquering. Moon Knight could put up a good fight, and even last longer than some others. But one of Kang's variants was even an Egyptian pharaoh, so for all we know, Kang beat whoever was the Moon Knight centuries ago. Speaking of new heroes, as much power as she displayed, I don't think Ms. Marvel could take down Kang either. Kamala Khan took on some powerful villains and showed an impressively quick learning curve as she discovered her new powers. Kamala may have access to different dimensions, but certain versions of Kang, like Lord Immortus, could already be the ruler of those other dimensions from which she draws her power. Overall, Ms. Marvel's full power has yet to be unleashed, but Kang's full power was realized centuries ago, or centuries from now. Time is a construct, and no matter what point you look at, there's likely a fully powered version of Kang conquering something, and that may just be too much for this new young hero to handle. The Black Knight, Dane Whitman, has yet to fully appear in all his glory, though he did play a part in the Eternals. His history, however, was only hinted at, and it seems as though it will be altered from the comics. In the pages, Dane Whitman lives an extended life as the Black Knight from generation to generation, but it seems as though the Ebony Blade will actually be passed down, creating a new Black Knight every few decades. The long history of masterful sword fighting with a magical blade is definitely a threat to Kang the Conqueror, but probably not enough to overcome him. Kang's Ultra-Diode Ray is more powerful than the Ebony Blade could ever hope to be. And should these two cross weapons, the Black Knight will basically be bringing a sword to a futuristic ray gun fight.
We'll show power then.
Vampires might shock the living heck out of us and the regular characters in the MCU, but Kang the Conqueror has been cycling them through the TVA for millennium. Mahershala Ali's Blade has already made an off-screen cameo appearance in Eternals.
Sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?
But confirmation of his very own movie means that he will be joining the fray with the rest of the Marvel heroes very soon. You see, Blade has a very specific set of skills. Don't try taking his daughter. No, what I mean is that Blade is particularly designed to hunt vampires. Now listen, I'm sure just about any random street tough would likely get his butt kicked by the Daywalker, but Kang the Conqueror is no ordinary tough guy.
Come on.
The weapons Blade uses to fight the undead will likely be all but useless against Kang. The God of Mischief has already been one-upped by the Master of Time. Loki was even convinced by He Who Remains that killing him was a bad idea.
That's how we got here.
This is the genius of Kang the Conqueror. Loki learned that there was no way to win, since either He Who Remains continued to remain, or he could be killed, making way for the worst variant of Kang the Conqueror to take over the universe. Loki's mischief may allow him to survive, but I don't think it matters how many Lokis you gather, because they are no match for the power of an army of Kangs. Loki may survive, but he will almost always survive in a world that has been conquered by Kang. I think Kang could take on just about any one of the Eternals, but I think the most interesting matchup would be against Phastos. Phastos is the smartest of the Eternals and a master inventor. He even came up with the Unimind that the Eternals used to give Cersei enough power to defeat Tiamat. Throughout their years on Earth, Phastos advanced societies into the future with his inventions, and even used his brilliant abilities to take on Icarus. Kang at his heart is a master inventor as well, and as good as Phastos is, he stands no chance against the Conqueror. Phastos designs incredible weapons and tools for his fellow Eternals, but Kang has created some of the most impressive inventions, no matter what variant we're talking about. Kang as Iron Lad was able to rival Tony's armor, and the original Conqueror was able to create time machines and rays capable of depleting someone of their powers. Overall, this would be a battle of geniuses that I think Kang would come out on top of. She-Hulk will definitely prove to be a formidable hero both in the courtroom and out of it once her series rolls around. However, I don't think that her strength can outmatch the Hulk, and therefore I don't think her strength can overcome Kang the Conqueror.
He doesn't mean that.
Her greatest weapon may be her legal skills, and I suppose if Kang willingly appears in court to answer for his crimes against the multiverse, then maybe she will stand a chance, but that's a long shot at best. Overall, I think there will be a few villains that can withstand the might of She-Hulk in the future, but Kang is likely one who can handle her. And by that I mean even if she gets a good punch in, Kang's coming back again and again, and even someone with the word Hulk in their name gets tired eventually.
Hello.
Shang-Chi was already likely the greatest hand-to-hand fighter in the MCU, and then he acquired some of the most powerful weapons in the universe in the form of the 10 Rings. The origin behind these weapons is still yet to be explored, so the extent of Shang-Chi's new power has yet to be fully explained. Regardless of the 10 Rings, however, Kang the Conqueror has the knowledge and might to defeat Shang-Chi. He watched for centuries as his father Wenwu conquered civilization after civilization, studying the power of the rings. Kang was able to reduce the power of the Infinity Stones to paperweights, so I think it's safe to say he could turn Shang-Chi's stylish jewelry into nothing more than just that. This next hero may be the first one to actually come in contact with the MCU's version of Kang the Conqueror. Obviously, we've already seen He Who Remains, but the next confirmed appearance of the variant actually known as Kang will be in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. The exploration of the quantum realm may be what sets Kang loose in the MCU, and the first hero in his path would be Ant-Man. And I do mean both versions of the character.
No, it's not here.
Hank Pym's intellect may be able to come close to rivaling Kang's, given that he was able to invent the technology to get to the realm Kang likely resides. However, Scott Lang and Hank Pym are in huge trouble when they come across Kang the Conqueror, because they really can't match up with this Avengers-level threat.
Right?
Steve Rogers was one of the greatest heroes of all time, and he helped create a mantle worth carrying on. I believe it was left to an incredibly worthy successor in the form of Sam Wilson, the next Captain America. While I do believe Sam will be a great hero and a great leader, he had a little difficulty fighting Batroc the Leaper. So I think it's safe to say taking on Kang on his own is a very bad choice. While Sam may not be able to take Kang on his own, I think he could be the one to give a rousing and inspiring speech that leads the Avengers to taking down Kang's dynasty. He may not be the one to take him down, but I think Captain America will be an integral piece of the puzzle. Carol Danvers is perhaps one of the strongest characters in the MCU, and is capable of defending multiple worlds at one time. Even in alternate universes, she has accomplished incredible feats such as taking Infinity Ultron and Party Thor to some of the most brutal fights those characters had ever seen. Carol could probably, more than any character, stand a chance in a one-on-one fight with Kang the Conqueror. But his ability to know every move his opponent will make makes it nearly impossible for Carol to stand any resemblance of a chance. Maybe if two other Marvels joined her, it would be a different story, but let's be real, like that would happen. With an Iron Man-sized hole in the universe, someone needs to step up and try and fill the shoes of Tony Stark. And while there are several candidates, such as Peter Parker or Riri Williams, at least some of Tony's legacy will be carried on by his best friend James Rhodes, better known as War Machine.
Put your hand down.
Rhodey is a master tactician thanks to his time served in the military, and he may not have the brains of Tony, but it's clear from his many suits that Tony saved the best for him. It's just unfortunate that without the same size brain as his late friend, that Kang the Conqueror can probably beat Rhodey easily. Not only will he be able to outwit him, but his technology is thousands of years ahead of where Tony Stark left off, leaving Rhodey little to no chance. Similar to She-Hulk, I don't think Kang can be beaten in the courtroom.
Oh.
A man who defies the laws of the multiverse cares not for those of the American legal system.
This is why.
And Daredevil's no one-trick pony, as he can definitely hold his own with his fists, but Kang the Conqueror has made robotic copies of himself, each capable of defeating the Man Without Fear on their own. So that's at least a comforting thought that while the awesome might of Kang is laying into Daredevil, he won't be afraid. Overall, Matt Murdock may be some criminal's worst nightmare, but for a villain like Kang the Conqueror, he's little more than a nuisance who might be able to land one or two good punches.
That's great. Thank you.
Picture it with me now. Avengers, the Kang Dynasty premiered. Kang the Conqueror has destroyed all the heroes we know and love. He's standing atop a pile of bodies including Thor, Hulk, Captain Marvel, etc. All hope is lost and Kang seems to have conquered all. Then, from the distance, a lone arrow whizzes by and strikes the mighty Kang the Conqueror directly in the eye, smashing through his futuristic helmet and defeating the mighty Marvel villain once and for all. Hawkeye emerges from the shadows, drops his bow, and walks off into the sunset. Fade to black. Okay, no, for real, I love the guy and I don't care how many trick arrows he and Kate Bishop make, but if Hawkeye lasts longer than 3 seconds in a fight with Kang the Conqueror, I'll eat my left shoe.
Groupie.
This last person may not seem like much, but he could be the greatest hope to win against Kang.
I'm Agent Mobius, by the way.
Agent Mobius of the TVA has no special powers or even a unique backstory, but he has something very few other characters have in the fight against the Conqueror.
Is that funny?
That is a working knowledge of Kang's technology.
I've been candy.
Thanks to his long service in the high ranks of the TVA, he has seen the multiple realities that Kang oversees.
We're all villains here.
He uses the technology that Kang uses to travel the multiverse. And most importantly, we know that he's good at heart when he learns the truth of the TVA. Unfortunately, he's just no match. Mobius may prove to give valuable knowledge to the people who ultimately take Kang down. I just don't think he could do it himself.
You're my favorite.
That's the gambit.
Spoiler alert, but Kang's Dynasty is already on the way. And he has a lot of MCU characters to get through before he can officially call himself the Conqueror. Which MCU characters do you think stand the best chance against Kang the Conqueror?